Welcome back. I'm Dr. Rob Malillo. I'm here with my wife, Carolyn. Our next guest is making flying and life in general less stressful for children with autism and other disabilities. Last year, Dr. Wendy Ross, who is the director of the Center for Pediatric Development, partnered up with United Airlines to introduce her air travel program, and she's here now to talk more about it. Welcome very much, Wendy, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Wendy, how big of a problem is this in the autism and special needs community?
Well, from my perspective, I was hearing it from pretty much all of my patients.
Wow.
And I feel like a lot of the resources go to the cause and the cure, but when I was seeing parents, they were wondering how they were going to do their activities tomorrow and what was going to happen when they were gone one day.
Sure, sure.
So you're a developmental pediatrician, a medical doctor, and you've been in practice for many years. So what was the first thing that got you to be interested in this? Or
Right, well, I guess I was hearing from my families that they weren't going out, and I started with museums, working to make them more inclusive. And then I had a patient that got stuck on a flight home from Disney World because the airline wanted her to pre-board with just one parent, but that wasn't how we prepared her. So that's how the AIR program got started.
so how would an airline deal with issues when a crisis like that?
Well, I think the first role of all of us actually is to prevent these crises, right?
Right.
So one of the first things we do is we prepare the community and we educate them about autism and make them more sensitive, and we provide them with strategies as well as providing families with strategies.
How easy is that to do? I mean, what, do you go to the museums and the airports? I mean, how receptive are they to this information?
Well, I'll be honest, initially it did take some convincing, but now more and more when they get feedback from the families about how much it helps them, people are really excited to do it.
So this is a big problem in the community. What happens when a child does actually have an outburst? How do you give the parents tools or techniques?
So we do a lot of work on the front end to prevent the problems by having families prepare, by having organizations prepare, and by having families practice with the support of clinicians. If families do have an issue, we still err on the side of preparing. So we have families go to a quiet area and calm down. We make sure that people in the community are asking the parents how they feel they might help them instead of just sort of jumping in, or what a lot of parents are afraid of is the judgment of other people.
Sure.
So I think that's a big thing to try to prevent that and have people just be patient.
Okay, well, thank you. We have a Twitter question now from Vincent A. O'Keefe. Some old school card games help, especially if batteries on devices die. Also paper and pencils for Hangman, Mad Libs, etc. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think absolutely, like any parent, again, you want to prepare and always have things in your bag of tricks to help keep your child comfortable when you're traveling. Activities, snacks, things like that.
Great.
So is there any, real main tools that you could give to our audience that, some things, obviously it doesn't replace coming to you and working with you and your staff, but are there some tips that you can give them that the parent now, tomorrow, if they're going to go on vacation, what should they be doing?
I mean, absolutely, because the goal of the program is to have families be independent. So we do it on a large scale, but families can absolutely call an organization and ask how they can prepare their child, ask for pictures. They can write their own social stories to prepare the child. And in the instance of an airport, they could ask for a practice experience to show up, and as much as people can, even if it's just security, I believe that people would be willing to help them.
What do you said an important point. What do you mean write a social story? Meaning they literally sit down with the child and write a story as if it was going to happen?
Right. So one of the things that we do, and now, which is really exciting, we're working with the sports teams,
Right,
is
that's
we
great.
write stories. These stories were created by Carol Gray, who's a very experienced educator and psychologist in autism. And they tell you what's going to happen in a social setting and what your expected response is. And they're really short. If somebody's at the Phillies game going to come sit in front of you, you need to either stand up so they can walk by you or move your legs aside.
Right.
Oh,
So
that's
the basic
wonderful.
things that other kids just socially get, that our kids with autism or any social disability need explained to them ahead of time.
Ahead of time. So that's really the key, knowing
Yeah.
things ahead of time,
Absolutely.
and what to expect.
Right.
And I think it's just fantastic because I know that you have a number of airports now involved with it, and you've worked so hard on this, and you've worked with hundreds of families, and that's great. And I know if people want to get in touch with you, your organization is Autism Inclusion Resources.
Right. And our website is www.autismir.com.
Okay, great. Okay. Dr. Wendy Ross, Director for Center of Pediatric Development, thank you so much for being
you.
here. And what you're doing for people is really important work.
Very
This is really
important.
something
I mean,
people
there are
should.
so many more kids out there that you don't realize how many families probably don't go on trips or don't
Right.
take their kids out in public because they're so worried about the stigma or being judged or
Yes.
the
Right.
outbursts. So
And
this is
yeah.
really important.
Especially the kids that might look typical, like they don't have an obvious disability, but they have a social disability, like kids with autism and ADHD.
This is
Okay, well,
wonderful,
thank you so
wonderful.
much.
Thank
And
you,
when we
Wendy.
come back, we will meet with one mom whose daughter was diagnosed with processing delays in the form of ADHD. Their story when we return after the break.